Some stories begin with thunder, others with heartbreak. This one begins on a dry stretch of prairie land, under a sky that looked too big for anyone to feel safe beneath it. A woman stood there, dusty dress, trembling hands, eyes swollen from years of quiet hurt she'd never spoken about. Her world had told her she wasn't beautiful, wasn't wanted, wasn't enough. And yet there she was, standing at the gate of a lonely rancher who'd lost more than he'd ever dare admit. She gathered the courage life had nearly beaten out of her, and whispered a sentence that carried a lifetime of pain inside it. "No one loves a fat girl, sir, but I can cook." The rancher froze. Not because of her size. Not because of her offer. But because behind her words, he heard something he recognized. A heart that had lived through too much cruelty. And was still somehow willing to give. Before we go deeper into this emotional story of kindness, compassion, and second chances, a quick invitation. Call to action. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment to support our channel, Whispers of Goodness. We share real, human stories that remind you the world still holds kindness, even in places you'd least expect. Now, let's begin this story. The year was 1889. The Dakota wind carried dust across the plains, whipping it against fences, cattle hides, and the faces of ranchers who worked from sunrise to moonlight. Life here wasn't gentle. It didn't pause for sorrow or give room for softness. And yet softness found its way here anyway, in the form of a woman named Martha Bell. Martha came from a family of settlers who believed women were meant to be small in voice, small in dreams, small in presence. But Martha had never been small. She wasn't thin in the way society preferred, and she wasn't quiet in the way her father demanded. She was warm, round-cheeked, soft-spoken, and filled with more kindness than most folks knew what to do with. But kindness doesn't protect you from cruelty. Her whole life, people had said things in front of her, not caring if she heard. "She's too big to find a husband." "Pretty face, but what a waste." "Men don't want a woman like that." Some comments were sharper than barbed wire. Some came from strangers. Some from her own kin. And so Martha learned to apologize for existing. She kept her eyes low, her voice lower, and her heart locked away like a fragile thing. When her parents died of illness during a brutal winter, the neighbors took what they wanted from the property, and Martha, alone, with no prospects, no brothers, and no dowry, wandered from homestead to homestead doing odd jobs for a plate of food or a cot to sleep on. And that path eventually led her to the ranch of Elias Rowan. Elias was a tall, weathered man in his late 30s. His beard held the color of storm clouds, and his eyes looked like they'd forgotten how to shine. Rumor was he'd once had a wife, and a baby girl, but both had passed from fever 6 years earlier. Since then, Elias had lived the life of a ghost, working, sleeping, and speaking only when necessary. People said he was cold. People said he was broken. People said he wanted to be left alone. But people don't always know the truth. The truth was simpler. Elias didn't believe he deserved kindness anymore. One late afternoon, while he was mending a fence post, he heard footsteps crunching on the dry earth behind him. He turned to see a woman, dusty, tired, and clearly nervous, standing near his gate. That woman was Martha. Elias wiped sweat from his forehead and approached her slowly. "Can I help you, ma'am?" Martha swallowed hard. Her voice barely made it past the wind. "Sir, I hear you need help around the kitchen." She took a deep breath, steadying herself. "No one loves a fat girl, sir, but I can cook." Elias blinked, stunned by the rawness of her words. He saw the shame in her eyes, the way she braced for rejection. Not disgust. Not pity. But something he recognized deep inside. The weight of being unwanted by the world. "Martha, is it?" he asked softly. She nodded. "Ma'am," he said gently, "if someone made you believe that your worth comes from what you look like, they lied." Martha's lips trembled. No one had ever defended her this way. Not once. Elias continued, "If you want to work here, you don't have to degrade yourself to earn a place. Are you a good cook?" "Yes, sir," she whispered. "I can feed a whole harvest team with nothing but flour and beans." A small, warm smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Then we're not talking about who loves who. We're talking about a job. And if you're willing, I'd be grateful for the help. Martha stared at him, stunned. She hadn't expected kindness. She had expected the same old cruelty she'd always known. But Elias wasn't cruel. He was wounded. And wounded people know the value of gentleness. From that day forward, Martha cooked for the ranch. She made biscuits that melted like butter, stews that tasted like comfort, and pies that reminded Elias of the days when laughter still filled his home. She never asked for praise. Never sought attention. But kindness, when genuine, shines even when hidden. Elias started noticing the small things she did. She packed his lunch every morning with a handwritten note. Just a line or two wishing him a good day. She mended his worn shirts even when he said she didn't need to. She left warm bread for the ranch hands when they came in from long rides. And she hummed quietly, sweetly, while she worked, filling the house with a warmth it hadn't held in years. One evening, after a long day branding calves, Elias walked into the kitchen and found Martha sitting at the table, her shoulders shaking. She wiped her eyes fast, but not fast enough. "What happened?" Elias asked, pulling out a chair. She tried to smile. "Nothing, sir. Just tired." But Elias knew sorrow when he saw it. "Martha," he said gently, "please, don't lie to me." Her voice cracked. "A couple of the ranch hands were laughing at me. Called me names. I didn't want to cause trouble." Elias clenched his jaw. "No one insults my workers. Especially not the ones who keep this place alive." He stood immediately and walked out the door. Within minutes, the two ranch hands were apologizing to Martha with their hats in their hands and their heads bowed low. Not because Elias threatened them, but because he told them the truth. "She shows more heart for this ranch than the two of you put together. If you can't treat her with respect, you don't deserve a place here." That night, as Martha washed dishes, Elias approached her again. "You deserve better than the way the world has treated you," he said. She looked down. "I'm used to it." "You shouldn't be," he replied. "You're kind. You're thoughtful. And the world needs more of that, not less." For the first time in years, Martha allowed herself to believe his words. Over the next months, their quiet companionship grew. What started as shared meals became shared conversations. What started as cautious politeness became easy laughter. Elias found himself telling Martha things he'd never told anyone about his daughter, about the guilt he carried, about how empty the house had become. And Martha, well, she found the courage to lift her head when she spoke. To smile openly. To laugh freely. To stop apologizing for taking up space. Kindness does that. It heals places inside us we thought were permanently broken. The ranch prospered. The home felt alive again. And one evening, as the sky turned orange and gold, Elias stood on the porch watching Martha hang laundry. "Ma'am," he said. She turned, her cheeks rosy from the sun. "Yes, sir?" "I think," Elias took a slow breath. "I think this home hasn't felt like a home since my family passed." "Not until you came." Her hands froze mid-air, holding a sheet. Elias stepped closer. "And I think," he continued softly, "that the world was wrong about you." "How so?" she whispered. He looked at her, truly looked. "You said no one loves a fat girl." He shook his head, voice thick with emotion. "But I think I do." Martha's breath hitched. Tears welled in her eyes, but these weren't the old kind. Not tears of pain, but of something long forgotten, hope. "And not because you cook," Elias added. "But because your heart is the strongest, gentlest thing I've ever known." Martha didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her tears said everything her voice couldn't. That night, under the vast Dakota sky, two lonely souls finally found the kindness they had both been starving for. This story isn't really about a rancher and a settler woman. It's about what kindness can do. How it can mend the broken. How it can quiet shame. How it can help someone finally see themselves as worthy of love. Kindness